Welcome to the Autonomous Conversations, the podcast leading up to the Governor's Symposium 2025. 15 years of constitutional autonomy, achievements, lessons, and prospects. Our goal is to inform and educate the public about St. Martin's constitutional history, its current status, and its prospects for the future. In today's episode, we're honored to be joined by Mr. Dennis Richardson, a central figure in St. Martin's administrative and political development. Together, we look back at the island's journey from 1954 to 10-10-10, revisiting the referendum, the debates surrounding autonomy, the challenges, and the unexpected moments that shape our country's status. Mr. Richardson, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's our honor to have you here. Let's set the stage. Can you briefly walk us through St. Martin's political journey from 1954 up?
Still a part of the Netherlands Antilles, and in the Netherlands Antilles, the establishing of the Netherlands Antilles was in itself a constitutional change, because before that, the islands were just colonies of the Dutch kingdom. But as you all know, at a certain stage in the international developments, a lot of countries were angling for independence from former colonizers. Suriname was the first one that left the kingdom as far as that is concerned. And in a move as it were to pacify or to give some content to the request for more autonomy of the islands, the Netherlands Antilles was formed, and St. Martin was part of the Netherlands Antilles. But before that, we were just, it was just Curaçao and what they call its onderhorigheden. It's subservience. With the change, constitutional change, St. Martin became part of the Netherlands Antilles, had representatives in the Parliament of the Netherlands Antilles, and even delivered ministers to the Council of Ministers of the Netherlands Antilles.
Leading up to 10-10-10, we had two referendums. One in 1994 and in 2000. What choices were on the table for each of those referendums?
Well, generally speaking, the choices were practically the same, I believe, with the exception of the first one. The first was, do you want to be part of, want to be independent, or do you want to remain a part of the country, the Netherlands Antilles? And in the second referendum was added the possibility to become an autonomous country within the kingdom.
In your opinion, what did the referendum result tell us about how people were feeling about their future and the future of St. Martin?
Well, given the result of the referendum in which St. Martin opted to become an autonomous country within the kingdom, it was clear that there was some disgruntlement with the setup of being part of the Netherlands Antilles. And that was, in my opinion, completely justified. The attention from the government of the Netherlands Antilles for the smaller islands, Aruba, not so much Aruba, but Curaçao, had for St. Martin, Sable and Sinter Station was really minimal. One of the reasons why Aruba stepped out of the constellation in first instance, because that was the first step to the change to the country, the Netherlands Antilles. I became Gezagheber of St. Martin in 1994, and I remember that there was practically no attention from the central government in Curaçao for St. Martin. The police force was practically non-existent, just 3 or 4 police officers, that was it. We never heard anything being undertaken to help the island develop itself. St. Martin developed itself through tourism, primarily, not because of help coming from the central government at all. So the connection with the central government, the connection with Curaçao, was not strong at all, and there was a felt feeling of, at least by the politicians, there was a feeling that the island was being neglected very much.
Well, given this history and what you've just told us, what were some of the tough debates and negotiations that the people may not have fully understood that took place during this time?
Well, the biggest debate was really with the Netherlands. Curacao really didn't object towards St. Martin becoming a country within the kingdom or leaving the constellation of the Netherlands Antilles. In fact, it was supportive in the discussions with the Dutch government. Um, the biggest problem was with the Dutch government because the Dutch government was of the opinion that St. Martin wasn't really ripe to become a country within the kingdom, did not have sufficient possibilities to service a status as country, which was not completely wrong. But the other option was also to help St. Martin achieve that possibility. And that is where the discussion centered. The Dutch government was reluctant to pump money and personnel into the country. It was like if you put on a big pants, keep it up yourself. That kind of a attitude was in the discussions. You want to become a country, you want to become self-sufficient. Well, then do it. That was it. But if you, in all those years that you have been responsible for the development of the islands, had not invested in creating the possibilities for the country to take care of itself, you cannot expect it to be able to do that from the day one when the country status would be there. So as St. Martin, we had to ask ourselves, do we still want to go ahead along this route? At least the leaders had to ask themselves that, to go along this route, or do we want to stop? But there was no feelings of turning back. There was, we'll go ahead, we'll pick it up and we'll do what we can, and we'll make the best of it. That was the attitude of the leaders. It's not a time now to say, oh, wait, let's wait another 10, 15, 20 years, because then it might never happen.
But given that history, what were the two biggest administrative or political, not two then, give us a brief breakdown, what were the biggest political or administrative hurdles that we had to face in us achieving our goal?
The biggest hurdle was justice. As I've said, the island was not equipped really properly for running a justice department. It was never part of the island territory to begin with. It was a responsibility of the country, the Netherlands Antilles, which meant Curacao. So that was a big hole there as far as that is concerned. That was a big challenge to be able to take that on. There were many things that we had to put in place. We were not really knowledgeable or aware of. The areas that the federal government really was responsible for in those days, the country Netherlands Antilles, those areas were the biggest challenges for St. Martin to tackle. And then naturally we had to do the reorganization of the support staff for the country. We was based on the island territory concept, but now you have to think in the different dimensions when it comes to the country St. Martin. So a complete reorganization of the civil service was necessary.
Now, we talk a lot about the administrative and the political atmosphere, but what do you believe the ordinary citizens experienced during this transition? Do you believe that they were mostly hopeful, skeptical, or somewhat divided?
I think the people were hopeful that things would change, that it would lead to great improvement of the standard of living, of life on St. Martin. It was also not solely a rational feeling. It was also an emotional feeling, a feeling that it's time for us to stand on our own 2 feet. We are already standing on our own 2 feet as far as the economy was concerned. As I said, tourism was a big thing in St. Martin, still is a big thing in St. Martin. And in fact, St. Martin became a center for the surrounding islands in the Caribbean. A lot of people came from the surrounding islands to St. Martin because of the tourism, the development of the tourism industry. So there was also a feeling that we are capable of doing this. We've been alone for so long, as far as we was concerned. Yeah. We should be able to carry this challenge.
Once we became country St. Martin, what was the biggest hurdle you think we had to face immediately after?
Well, the biggest hurdle was really to bring the apparatus in support of government up to par. forming a parliament, elections, we were accustomed of holding elections, so holding elections for parliament was similar to holding elections for the island council, although parliament is a different body altogether. That is one. And then a big challenge that not even properly, I think, addressed at the time was that you have to educate your organization for these new responsibilities and these tasks. Those, as far as I was concerned, one of the major challenges for the island to bring its apparatus, to bring its governing system, as it were, up to par with the tasks and responsibilities that you now had, which you didn't have in the past.
Now we spoke a lot about our history, how we got to this part, but I know there got to be some stories that the average person is not aware of. Can you give us any little events, or little unknown events that played a role in shaping our status?
Well, as I've said before, the major discussions was with the Dutch government. And I can tell you some of those discussions were not easy. The defense of St. Martin called for being very assertive in the direction of the Dutch government. And there were those civil servants of the Dutch government who felt that that was an attitude that they do not need to accept. So there were some flashpoints during those discussions with certain individuals in the course of discussing where we were going and what responsibilities we needed to have and which we should surrender or under which conditions we should surrender. Those were not easy discussions because, like I said, on our part there was an emotional element to it, and from the Dutch side, I think there was a feeling, oh, those boys, they can't do that. They're not capable of doing that, and that would affect the image of the kingdom in their opinion. Well, that was not accepted during that process by us, and that led to some heavy conversations. Sometimes walkouts happen. So
I can imagine.
Yeah. We've had moments in which we stood up and just walked out, and vice versa. That happened also.
But eventually we came back to the table and we're here where we're at today.
Yep.
And Mr. Richardson, I want to thank you so much for your input, the insight, and the history that you just gave us. I'm sure we're somewhat much more aware of where the whole transition was, the history, and we want to thank you so much for taking time out for this interview.
Well, it is a pleasure that I've been able to talk about it, but I will end with saying the story isn't finished yet. We still have a long way to go. We're still developing.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. This has been our first episode of Autonomous Conversation, the podcast series leading up to the Governor's Symposium 2025. Please join us next time as we look to our autonomous status within the kingdom.